Hello. I don't know if this video is gonna waste your time or gonna be valuable or gonna be totally basic or totally advanced. Here is what I'm gonna go through. Now, I have uh, my friend Patrick from Paris, and he's fantastic. He is an instructor at La Défense, and because he wants to work with his master's students, we have these conversations. And in this video, I'm going to show you how I hope to make a much more efficient data table. So there's going to be something real here. And then I want to show you different techniques to speed things up. And we're going to use something called an array method. We'll use the screen updating, which is very basic. We'll put manual. We'll put a manual option. How about this? And I hope, if I can spell at all, I hope to illustrate some techniques that might be kind of useful. Now, I have made an effort, not a good one, to make some crazy calculation. This calculation takes the row input, divides it by the column input, adds the column input by the sum of everything that's in D26 to D21987, some gigantic sum, divides it by e to the 1000th power. And I tried to make a long calculation. I probably didn't. There it is. Okay, now, if I'm going, right now, let's see what the setting is. Right now, the setting is automatic. If I'm pressing function F9 here, and I can't even see the calculation. Okay, whatever. All right, now let's say I want to make this data table and I want to put 2000 into this data table, and I'm going to show you how to do this, and I want to take these ones away. Okay, all I have to do is press, I'm trying to press Control F3. Okay, and when I press Control F3, this thing in red, we're going to show you how to color it and do all sorts of little things with this range name. Right now, this range name is here, so I'm just going to change this range name. Now, I was thinking about using the offset function and making a dynamic range rate, but I'm not going to do that. Okay, and now when I remake this data table with this new range name, I'm just going to press the false button, and I've put a lot of little message boxes in, different kind of message box. Yes, I want to proceed. And then it tells me that it took 2 seconds to do this. And I'm going to try different techniques. Now, what I should do here is let's clear everything out. Okay. Uh-oh. That's clear. I want to proceed. It's totally cleared out. No color yet. And it takes it in. Now, I put a little RGB here, and I want to show you how to take a range name and just make it that. Now, if I hopefully this works. If I put 000 for the RGB, it's all black. How about I put 100, 200, 300? I forgot that RGB of 000 is all black. I thought it would be all white, and I was wrong. Okay, all right. So that's how we can do it. Now, let me show you some techniques that are intended to demonstrate how we can make this thing work more quickly and some of the stuff. So I've just assigned a macro to the button. Okay, now I'm going to go through some basic stuff and then some advanced stuff. Now, if I change this to manual, so what I did is first I get the current calculation. the approach, whatever, the current calculation method. Okay? And then you change it to manual. Now, the reason you get the current calculation method, the reason you change it, because at the very end, at the very, very end of the program, you reset here, calculation, find calculation method to the original. Okay, so I'm going to, of course, put this program on the website, and I and and I made some of these comments when I made my last video, which you can see I can't get words out anymore. Okay. Still in trouble for wasting too much time in my life on Excel, and I've been told I have a miserable life and all this stuff, but who cares? Now, the next thing we can do, this is if we really want to speed something up, it's almost an absolute necessity. And the very first thing to do is we do not want the screen to update. So right now, I'm going to put the screen updating in equal true. And the reason I'm going to do that, to show the cleared area. Now, in Excel, now, and this is just a standard old message box, nothing fancied, and there's nothing more I use. I have been told by Patrick and Mike, my friend from New York, Michael Flynn, not the person who's was indicted, not indicted. He's a really good programmer. And he says, no, don't use this message box to check things. I use this thing where you put the little binoculars here. And I've never been able to do that well. And they all claim it is the best. So sorry if I'm giving you some bad advice. Now here, what we're doing here is taking this key thing, everything in this program is really about taking this range named output and doing things with it. We're going to color it, we're going to clear it, we're going to use it for the data table, we're going to count how many rows and columns there are in it, we're going to count where the rows and the columns start, and with that little thing output, we can do a whole lot of things. Now, we could also make it a dynamic range name where we put the number of rows and columns and change that with the offset function. But that would be a pain because we'd have to put the rows and the columns in. So I thought about that and thought, no. So then I'm going to, now I put a little switch in for the screen updating. I said, well, if the, and this is a range name, and if the screen updating is false, then that's the standard. But if we change the screen updating to true on our thing, then we'll update the screen. So let's try to do that. Okay, and I'm going to put a false in here. All right, and then we run this thing, and that's before clear, and then it cleared out just like we wanted to do. So it's all clear right now. And then this is another message box we'll talk about which has it. And now it took a little bit longer. It took 3 seconds instead of 2 seconds. Not that big a deal. Okay, but let's do the same thing. So this screen updating you see is a range name. And of course, I say of course, which is a bad habit, because if you haven't really looked at VBA and if you're just using it to get introduced, sorry about that. I shouldn't have said of course. Everything really is with a range name. So I'm going to put the manual option to true, and then I'm going to press Shift Control F3. And it says I'm going to take it from the left column. Very good. So now I have a manual option. So now let's go back and assign this macro and press edit. You can do it. I could have used alternate F11 instead of doing that. And now when I have this thing up here, I'm only going to I'm only going to do this if range, and I put manual option. I hope is that what I wrote? Equal, and then I don't even have to put an equal true here, but I do have to put the word then. Okay, so, oops, and I do have to spell it correctly. And so this is now, I put it as manual option, and I hope you can see that that's what it came out to be. Okay, you can't kind of see it here. I just learned today, I didn't know this, but do you know that you can just pull this across? Did you know that? I just learned that today. Okay. All right, and then let's continue. Okay. Come on. And then okay, let's go down. So right now, if it's not the manual option, let's make it false. And I'm going to show you how this works in just a minute. So this, right now, our formulas are set to automatic accept data tables. And if I run the program now with the manual false, and I proceed, okay, can you see that it's a whole lot slower? And the real question is, and this is a little more advanced, how can we get things to run much faster? It doesn't look like it. Maybe you think it's not that slow because uh, because I'm talking, but that is slow, especially, and that took, oh my God, it took 30 seconds. Okay, and that's because the screen updating was also true, and our array method was false. But before we start experimenting a little more, let's continue and go down this program. And okay, so we could even perhaps put up here, let's put a little comment. When you change to manual and, oh no, I can't capitalize that because my stupid psychologist sister capitalizes things. And if you have to capitalize or underline, you do whatever you want. I'm not going to comment about bad habits in writing. And when you change to manual and define the calculation area, you can speed up a lot. And let me just say, so where are we now? Let's go down a couple more rows until we hit the time thing. Now, if you want a message box that says the true and false instead of this simple old message box, what you do is you start typing the message box. You need a bracket and you need an equal sign at the beginning. And up there, it gives you all of these little buttons to do. Let's try this one. I have no idea what this one is. And then we can't do both of them. Okay, I'm sure I have to do that one. And then, you know what I do always when I have this, I put a little other message box test. Now, all of my friends, Michael Flynn and everybody else, Mike Flynn, he says, no, you could trace that with the little binocular thing. But I'm not good. So I do before clear, do you want to proceed? Now it's just got an okay. And if it says okay, then it's got the number 1, and then I exited the program if it wasn't equal to 6. That wasn't a very good one. Let's do another one. But you can see kind of how these little things work with the message box. So again, I decided to waste your time, but some people, let's see what it has with an exclamation. That'll give us a little exclamation. Oh, why didn't that work? Where am I? Okay, let's put exclamation point. Help. Where was it? It was up here. Let's do this one. Yes. Let's do this one, and maybe finally we'll get something here. Okay. Oh, what's going on? Okay. Before clear, that's supposed to be like that. Oh, it just gives an information here. That was nothing. That's kind of stupid. Okay. And then, so now let's go back and do finally our yes/no question. I almost should, I edit these videos and I take away some of the mistakes I make, and I almost should take this away, but I don't think I'm going to. I'm kind of too lazy a little bit. Where is our yes/no question? Did you see that? Yes, VB, yes/no. Okay. That's that one. And then we can delete this test because I know yes is equal to 6. I tested it out. And then we put this RGB. Now what I did is I made these range names too. And for some reason, there must be a good reason for this. When it makes a range name R, it puts a little underline in it. And when you put a G in, it doesn't. So this is R_GB. Okay? And that's the interior. We could have done the same thing for the font. Okay, so this just says put the RGB, and then you can look and Google, just put Google RGB colors and you can find them, or whatever. I think you can go to Excel and also get the RGB. So then now is kind of the real key part. To make everything here, if there, the year was 1998, and I was teaching a class, and I was horrible. Ugh. And I was trying to show that I knew macros, and I never used the cells command. I used to take the range and adjust it. This cells command with a for loop is really the key to doing so much stuff in VBA, because then you can go around, but you need to first know how many to go around. And if you take this range output and put dot rows and dot count, and I didn't know that. I had to experiment with it. So what I'm trying to do is to give you useful things. And they're kind of random. I don't have a list. They're probably, thousands and thousands of little techniques you can do in VBA, program in VBA. Okay, and then I put that up here, I put a dimension with the result, and I redimensioned that with the number of total rows and the total columns. That's in output. And if we could print those out, but I'm not going to, and prove that they really work. That's how, and I used to just put dot rows, and it never worked. You have to put dot rows, dot count. Now, once you have that, then I put a little thing, the time start, and I can never remember how to do this. And you just put the time here, and then below our loop, which we'll get to in a minute, you put the time end. Okay, now, up here, I put the time start and the time end. Now, this is tricky. Somebody, again, in my class showed me how to do this. I'm pressing F2. If you take the end minus the start, it gives you everything in days. But there are 60 minutes in an hour, I think. 60 seconds in a minute. 60 minutes in an hour, and 24 hours in a day. So you can take this time start and time end and multiply it by 60 times 60 times 24, and it will give you how many seconds it takes to run. Unfortunately, I'm sure there's a way to do this, but I don't know. I would sometimes love to see this in milliseconds, in fractions of a second, because I would like to see exactly how much this stuff takes to run. That's why I had to make this program so big so you can really see it. I want to see a fraction of a second, and I want to start investigating how to make these kind of things you do in VBA run much faster. So again, I'm going to, this last one took 30 seconds, not 30 minutes. If I put apply array method true, screen false, and manual true. Then the same program to run the same data table. Now I do Monte Carlo with this, and there are so many applications with this. I can hardly start with this cells function and the for loop. And then I'm putting before clear. The time thing hasn't started because we're pressing buttons. If that takes long, we don't want to count that. Do I want to proceed? Yes. And now it's starting. It put the time, and now it got it down to 2 seconds. And I think that's about the fastest thing we could do. If I put false here, okay, and then I put this thing in, this is again, do you want to proceed, blah, blah, blah. Oh, come on. Oh, no, it's taking longer. Is it? Or did it finish? No, it finished. The screen updating didn't affect that. If I put false here, though, the method takes a lot longer. And while so this manual option can be a big key. I didn't want it. Now the real trick for the manual option is to find which area is being calculated. That one took 17 seconds. And let me put 300, 100, and 500. I have no idea what that's going to give us. And let's put the manual option to true and run the program. And I haven't explained a lot of this stuff yet. Okay, and now we got a purple color, which I wanted to say. And now, for some reason, it took 1 second. And I don't know why it just took 2 seconds before, but that's how we can test all sorts of things. You know, this business of heavy models, it's driving me crazy. It really is. I thought I had the answer, and I started making a video. I thought I had techniques that could reduce the heaviness of models, and I hate that term because it sounds like you're such a snob. Oh, this model's too heavy. Oh, God. But how we can make it faster and how we can have it less megabytes, that is a big deal. I'm putting this thing, by the way, I hope I don't have anything bad here. I'm going to put this in, sorry about kind of not being structured in this video, but I'm going to put this into data tables. Oh no, I gotta fix this. Better tab data tables with VBA. Okay, I don't know what I've got here yet, but I've got some general stuff, and I'll put this at the bottom of this sheet. Or no, probably not at the bottom. Okay, I haven't put it there yet. All right, now let's go back. So I get criticized sometimes, rightfully so, for not telling you where the files are. Okay. Now let's go return to the program. Okay. Now let's talk about kind of the tricky part. So now what we've got, then the next thing you can do, and this took me probably, I told you I first started using this in 1998. That's when I first, I remember I hated Excel. I was an anti-Excel person, you know. I thought all things should be written in C and all that stuff. I started using Excel. I said, okay, but you can use VBA. And then I didn't know about this, that you can just take the start row and the start column till basically this year. So I was a complete idiot. And that's pretty important. So we could get the total rows and the total columns, and that contrast with the start row and the start column. By the way, I don't use the option explicit like every single Google thing when you press on it. Always use option, of course, yes. And so then the start row is key. In a minute, I'll show you. And then we're going to make these for loops. Now, if there's any way you can do something without making a for loop, when you just can copy a whole range. For example, if you copy a whole range, it will take a whole lot longer to copy a range if you have a for loop than if you can just do an array dot value equals a second array dot value. Okay, but we can't really do this because every single time we've got to recalculate this little thing. So now let's talk about our data table. This is the result, some crazy thing, and there's a range name for this result. And I have a column input. That's this one, right? That's the one associated with this one. So right now it's on the last column input, and you could, I suppose, reset the column input to the original one, kind of like we did with the calculation option, but I'm too lazy to do that, I think, right now. And this is the last row input. Okay, so what we're doing in this data table, which is good to think about, that's what any data table does, is we're going around and around, and we're changing this 100 to 200 to 3. This up here, this row input, we're just changing this from 100, 200, 300, 400, and every time we change it, we're getting the result. And then we're changing this one from 100 to 1,400 here, and we're getting the result. And each time we go around the row, we'll go around the row first, and then for 100, put all these things in. And then we'll go around the column and put these things in. And I think you kind of saw that when I did it. I'm not going to run it one more time, okay? Now, okay, so where are we? So we go around the rows, and we go to total rows. And in the old method, like on my website, I used to compute the total rows in Excel. And because I didn't know about all this stuff, I put the total rows in Excel. It was totally inefficient. Okay, instead of using this rows.count. And that's something really is important to use. And then once you go around the rows, we're going to go down the rows. So I kind of told you wrong. We'll first go down the rows, down this one. And every time we go around the rows, we have to take this thing up here, which is, notice that's outside of the purple area. So we have to go one to the left. Is that okay? We have to go back one column, -1. And every time we go around the rows, we're going to take this 100 and plop it into the column input. Remember, this had a range name. So we go back here, and we say range column input. And that's just one single cell. Remember, the column input is one single cell. Okay, and we say, well, that's equal to the cells, and this is the cells row, comma, column. That's how I always say it. And we put something in a row and a column. Now, this row goes around and around because that's a for loop. I should have really explained this better for people who are brand new to this stuff. The for goes from 1 to all the rows. It goes around and around, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, to the rows. That's just a number, starting with 1. But then we have to start it. In this cells tells you exactly where to start in Excel. And what you need to do is not start in row 1. You have to start in row 1 plus the number of rows we're starting. But we've already added 1 to the row, so we got to subtract 1. This says, if we output this, it would say the first row here is row 4. It would go from 1 to 4, but we want to start in row 4, which is the starting point for the purple area now, plus the row -1. And then we're not finished. Then we've got to go backwards. We take the start column, but we got to go backwards 1 to the left, because that's outside of our little thing. And then we don't have to do all this business. That way we can just change the output any place we want. We can put different sizes of output, just like I showed you at the introduction. I loved it so much. So let's say I need another extra column. So remember, you press Control F3. And when you press Control F3, you go to our output. Okay, and then you just take this output and go one more column. That means the total number of columns increased by 1. Okay, and we say, okay, I'm going to close that and save that. And I'm going to put 2,500 here. Okay, and what with that, we could have done the same thing for the row. And then, luckily, we want to proceed, blah, blah, blah. Okay, and now ooh, that was a really big number. Okay, and now it gave us our new values, and that's how easy it is. So it's pretty flexible, maybe even in that sense, almost more flexible than a data table, because if you did a data table, you'd have to go up, delete the data table, put it in, put the range in, and all of that stuff. Okay. Sorry about sighing, but I get so excited about making these videos. It's the highlight of my miserable little life. Okay, now so we put this column input, and then once we've gone around the rows, we also have to go around the columns. But that's what we just did. We just increased the number of columns up here, which was up here. We just increased this by 1. Okay, now, and that's the same thing, but it's worth reviewing. This time we go to the starting row, which was up here, and then we go up 1 from that starting row because it's outside of the purple area. We go up 1. Okay, and then once we go up 1, once we go up 1, then we take this down here, and then we go to the columns, because I'm going around all the columns from 1 to all the number of columns, and we have to add remember, cells 1 1 would be the very first cell in the sheet. We don't want cell 1's 1's. We want to go all the way forward to the starting column, but we got a -1 since we added 1. And what I have to do up here, which is really important, I put option base 1, and I got yelled at not by anybody, but by Google, some Google search that says never ever use option base 1, always use option explicit. Sorry, I do the opposite. Very bad. Very, very, very bad. But I can complete a sentence, not like some other people. Okay, it is very bad. Then okay, that's how we're going around the column. Then this is the big one. Okay, let's put this. Go around columns, and what should we put? And set the row input. That's kind of tricky. And then this only calculates the output cell. And if you don't remember, this was up here. And that's the key. That turns out, if there's one thing to get things going more quickly, is we don't recompute all the other things. That's like pressing F9 only on that cell. It leaves everything else the same. That's the big deal. And I suggest you trying it. I suggest you go, and that has this dramatic result. We already saw that. If we make the manual option equal false, that means every time we go around, we're calculating the whole sheet. And it turns out we only need that to calculate. Now, I didn't know that until I just started doing these things. So that, for me, is a little bit advanced. And what you can do is, if you have a circular reference and you're using the copy-paste method that I hate and detest and think's the worst thing ever, you can calculate, if it's taking a whole long time, you can only calculate the area, the whole area in Excel, make a range name, and only calculate the area that's in the circular reference part. Don't compute the whole thing if you're going around and around and the iterations are really slow. Okay, I hope that doesn't solve too many things. I hope you still hate the circular reference copy and paste, which I can't get people to be convinced of yet, and my whole next set of videos is this thing I'm working with Hetty on, and it really is the coolest thing ever. Oh God, it's exciting. I can hardly contain myself. Okay. Now, where was I? Let's go back to this program. So that's this thing. That's this. This is the key. The key to making the model work fast. Okay. Now, after we do that, we can then. Here, I said, now I did something tricky. This is the normal thing you'd put. This is a simple method, and we don't have to do all this redimension business and everything else. But then I put a range method that says, no. If this range method is true, don't put it in output here. Put it in an array called result. And then take this array called result, and when you're already all finished, put it down there as an output. Now let's see if that really saves us time or not. To really evaluate this, I'm going to put the manual option as false. Okay, and now I haven't finished explaining this. I'm just going to show you. So if we have an array method of true and the screen updating, I want to leave false because we don't want to, that's obvious. We got to do that because that really wastes a lot of time. If we put the manual option to false, then it's going to do the calculation and be much slower. Let's put this one to false too. So let's do it without this. This is kind of the classic method. And again, you want to proceed, yes. And you can see it's clunking around. And it's not even, oh no, is this going to be forever? Uh-oh. Oh no. Okay, I might have to pause. Okay, that was 28 seconds. I don't want to waste 28 seconds of your time. Now, if we put true, which says don't write it out every time, put the stuff into an array variable, and then write out all that array variable plop in one go. So let's try that one. And I put before clear. Do you want to proceed? We've got our color. And I'm going to pause. That took 20 seconds. So it did help. It did help. So let me show you kind of how that works. When you do this, you can take this range output and make it equal to this variable named result. You notice I don't have an array here. I don't have a row and a column. But the result here has a row and a column. What we're doing is putting every single result into the result is from Excel. We're putting into it for different rows and different columns. That's just our data table, and I didn't probably quite explain that exactly well. Instead of putting this range output dot cells row column, this says it's the first row of output, the first column of output. I didn't explain it, but that's a key thing to do. This whole business of using a for next and the cells is, if you can get used to that and get comfortable with that, and it takes a while. And don't be intimidated by for loops. Don't be intimidated by the cells function, or whatever it's called. It's not really called a function, whatever I call that. Okay, and then but this is the problem. If you have this array that has 2 dimensions, what you can do is first you have to define it as an array. So you have to put a little bracket here. It's not a constant. To understand the difference between an array and a constant is going to be crucial in the next set of videos I go through. And you're probably not watching this. This last one, my friend, I go, oh no, he said, I did really watch it. I did really make it to the end. I was tortured. I made it. I should get a prize. But he didn't really want a prize. My biggest prize was just to put his little comment on I think I put it on my website. Okay. And then, oh, big prize that is. And I don't know if I should put your name on there, and if you don't want to be, you could be famous. How ridiculous is that? Okay, and this puts puts output into an array to make faster. Okay, and then once we're finished, if we put it into an array, then fill up output with values. And it only works for me when I used option base 1. And it only works if you do this really careful redimension thing down here, where you first compute all the rows and the columns and you put them in. So it really wasn't that hard to do if you get used to it. And then finally, you print out the time. Okay, I'm going on and on about this, and I know people have been turning off the video. I should give you another prize if you if you tell me, yes, I made it through this torture. Put my name on the whatever. Write me a letter of recommendation. I'll write you a letter of recommendation, which doesn't mean a damn thing, because I'm not really. Nobody should pay attention to my letters. They don't have any idea who I am. So now we'll just show you this did improve. Screen, and then of course if I put true here, so we're only calculating this cell, and this goes and recalculates everything to get to that cell. And for me, I don't know why this is the most important thing to do, because then did I just do it already? It just took 2 seconds instead of 20 seconds. Why didn't it? It should have cleared the thing out there. Maybe, I don't know why it didn't clear that. Oh, maybe it did and I didn't see it or something. Whatever. That's bothering me a little that it didn't do that, but I'm not going to pause the video and go crazy about it. Now let's just compare this to data tables. Now, if you would do a data table instead, I kind of set it up, and maybe I'll put all my columns over here. In fact, let's do it like this. There's no reason you couldn't just take the variables, okay? So now let me start moaning and complaining about data tables. And I forgot where we did it here. We stopped with 1,400. Okay, and then you have to put things in the middle. And there's no way to not put that in the middle. And then I think you can press, can you press Shift, Control, oh, what can you press? Shift, Control, Space? Yes, Shift, Control, Space. That's not that good a deal because it only works if there's nothing on the top and the bottom. And then you can go to Data, and then you can go to What If Analysis and Data Table. And you have to put the row input cell that I nicely named. Oops! Oh, why did I press Enter? What If Analysis. Let's go to the Data Table. And oh, I guess we have to re-put it in each time. So another thing I get to criticize, but not a big deal. Put the column input. Okay, and then we do that. And then since this is on this one, we have to press the F9 button or Shift F9. We can't really isolate only on the thing. Okay, so let's press Shift F9. And it says Data Table 1. And we could have almost put an experiment. It didn't take 2 seconds. It probably took, maybe it took a little bit less. So I can't get into Excel and compute it fast enough. But let's just talk about a few things you can do. Of course, I say of course again, bad me, if you would take this and put this into the sheet 2, and then run the data table again, and even if we do this, Alt DT, and if we try to put the row input cell in here, and try to put the column input cell in sheet 1, I think most of you know that that would not work. And that really sucks, because that means a data table becomes worthless. And if I put F9 again, excuse me, oh no, I pressed Control F9. Oh, how do I get back here? Oh no. I'm not really crying. I'm just